Every map in the galaxy had a dark patch on it, a black space where no light came back, no ship returned, and no one spoke of what happened inside. That place had a name whispered with fear, the human sector. Long ago, before the fall of Earth, humans had ruled there. They were bold, unpredictable, and too clever for the comfort of the other races. But one day they vanished. Entire fleets, colonies, and cities disappeared without a trace. No one knew why. Since then, that part of space had been forbidden. Yet rumors still spread. Some said the stars inside whispered at night, calling ships closer. Others said that if you listened long enough, you could still hear human voices on the radio bands. Commander Viral of the Kellan Empire didn't believe in ghost stories. To him, space was just data, science, and logic. He stood on the bridge of his exploration cruiser Valorian, watching the black patch on the screen grow closer. His sensors showed nothing, not even background radiation. No readings. His science officer said nervously, "It's empty, sir. Completely empty." Viral frowned. "Nothing is truly empty," he said. "Run a deep scan." The officers exchanged worried looks. The youngest one, an ensign named Thal, whispered, "Commander, no one ever comes back from there." Viral turned his cold eyes toward him. "Then we'll be the first." The fleet of 5 Kellan ships stopped at the border of the human sector. In front of them stretched a darkness that seemed alive. Even the nearby stars looked dimmer, as if afraid to shine too close. "It's like space itself dies there," one officer muttered. The crew felt a strange chill. The ship's lights flickered for just a second. The commander ignored it and ordered, "Send a probe." A small drone detached from the ship, flashing blue thrusters as it entered the edge of the dark zone. The crew held their breath as the signal stayed strong. 1 minute passed. Then 2. Suddenly, static filled the bridge speakers. "We're losing connection," shouted the tech officer. The screen went blank, then flashed again. The probe's camera showed something, a metallic shape, enormous and silent, drifting in the dark. It looked like a ship, but not alien. It was human. Before anyone could speak, the feed cut off. Only one faint audio message came through the static. A whisper. 3 words. "They are here." The crew froze. The comms officer turned pale. "Sir, that voice sounded human." Commander Viral's heart pounded. He replayed the signal, but now there was only noise. He clenched his jaw. "Prepare another probe," he ordered. "We'll verify what we saw." But the technician shook his head. "Commander, the probe's transponder says it's still transmitting, but from inside our ship." The crew went silent. Alarms began to flicker on the dashboard, one after another. Sensors showed motion, but nothing appeared on the external cameras. "It must be a glitch," someone said, though their voice trembled. Viral barked, "Lock down all decks. Check the hangar." 2 guards rushed out. Minutes passed, but they didn't return. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor feeds. Then static again. The ship's lights dimmed, and everyone felt a drop in temperature, like the warmth had been sucked away. Then the voice came back. This time, it spoke through the main comms channel. "You shouldn't have come." It was soft, calm, unmistakably human. Every alien on the bridge stared at the speakers in disbelief. "Identify yourself," Viral demanded. No answer, only the faint sound of breathing. Then the whisper said, "You woke us." The comms cut. All the ship systems went offline for 3 seconds, long enough for terror to settle in. When power returned, the probe that had vanished was floating right outside the main viewport, its thrusters dead. It had returned on its own. Viral stared at it, jaw tight. "Retrieve it," he ordered. The hangar crew brought it aboard. It was intact but coated in fine black dust, like ash. The data core inside was still active, pulsing with a red light. The engineer hesitated. "Sir, this doesn't look right." Viral snapped, "Open it." The moment they did, every screen on the ship flashed white. The ship's AI voice stuttered. Unauthorized signal detected. Human encryption code active. Then the main computer began to speak, not in Kellan language, but in English. Protocol watchtower engaged. The crew had no idea what it meant, but the ship's sensors suddenly picked up hundreds of small energy sources deep inside the forbidden sector. They were waking up. The science officer's hand shook. "Commander, these signals, they're ships. Old human ships." Viral leaned forward. "Are they moving?" The officer nodded slowly. "Yes, directly toward us." The commander's throat went dry. "How many?" "Hundreds, sir." The bridge fell silent. Only the hum of the engines filled the air. For the first time, Commander Viral felt something he hadn't felt in years: fear. He ordered the fleet to retreat, but the engines refused to start. The navigation screen flickered, showing one final message across the display: "Welcome back to the human domain." As the words faded, the stars outside began to disappear, one by one, swallowed by the black. And for a brief moment, every crew member swore they heard distant human laughter echoing through the void. The Kellen fleet drifted at the edge of the human sector, engines quiet, lights dimmed. No one spoke for a long time. The blackness before them felt alive, pressing against their minds. Commander Viral stood still, eyes fixed on the dark void where their probe had vanished and returned. Every instinct told him to run, yet something stronger, a mix of curiosity and pride, kept him there. The humans were gone, everyone knew that. But the voice, the message, the signals, they were real. He needed to know why. "Status report," Viral ordered finally. His voice broke the heavy silence. The science officer swallowed hard. "All systems stable, sir. But there's something strange." He hesitated. "The probe's data core is still transmitting on its own. It's sending an old human distress code." The commander frowned. "A distress signal? From what source?" "From inside the forbidden zone," the officer replied quietly. "It's centuries old, but it just activated." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Humans were supposed to be extinct for over 300 years. Viral walked closer to the central holomap. A single point of red light blinked deep within the darkness. "Amplify it," he said. The signal grew louder, breaking through the static. A faint voice echoed, distorted but clear enough to understand. "This is Captain Elias Ward. Human Defense Command, requesting aid. They're coming, we can hold them." The message cut off in a burst of static. Then silence. No one moved. The commander's jaw tightened. "Replay that." They did. The same chilling words repeated, ending the same way. "How can this be?" muttered Thal, the young ensign. "Humans are gone. They vanished long before our empire rose." Viral didn't answer. He stared into the black expanse, as if trying to see through it. "Perhaps not all of them," he said softly. "Perhaps something remained." The crew whispered among themselves, some saying the humans had turned into ghosts of machines, others claiming the signal was a trap. But one thing was certain. The message came from real coordinates. Viral made his decision. "We trace it." The bridge fell silent. The second officer, pale and nervous, protested. "Sir, the council forbids any entry into that region. It's sealed by law." The commander's gaze hardened. "Laws are written by the living. I want to know what killed the dead." The fleet adjusted its course, engines humming softly. As they crossed the invisible border of the human sector, the stars around them dimmed further, as if the darkness swallowed light itself. At first, everything seemed quiet. The scanners showed nothing, the comms were stable, and the ships moved smoothly. But then, faint whispers began to creep into the background of the comms channel. Not voices at first, but rhythmic sounds, like old radio static forming patterns. Then a woman's voice, distant, faint, repeating one phrase over and over. "Turn back. Turn back. Turn back." The comms officer trembled. "Sir, it's not coming from outside. It's coming from our own network." Viral's cold expression didn't change. "Mute it." They pressed on. Hours passed, the crew restless and afraid. The deeper they went, the more their sensors failed. Energy readings spiked, then vanished. Magnetic fields twisted without reason. It felt like the universe itself didn't want them there. Suddenly, a large metallic object appeared on radar, stationary, massive, and close. "We've found the source," shouted the science officer. The ship slowed, and the cameras focused on the object. It was an old satellite, rusted, ancient, but still active. Its hull bore faded letters. UHS Sentinel. That's human tech, whispered Thal in awe. It shouldn't even be working. The satellite rotated slowly, its dish turning toward them as if it knew they were there. Then it transmitted something. A new message appeared on their screens, written in human language. It wasn't a distress call. It was a warning. Do not enter. The crew froze. Sir, what do we do? Asked the science officer. Commander Viral's voice was calm but sharp. Record everything. Then move closer. The fleet inched forward. Suddenly, every ship's comms went dead. The screens went black, then filled with static. The words changed. The warning message began to distort, twisting into strange symbols. The AI couldn't translate them. Then a deep mechanical sound filled the ship, a pulse, slow and heavy, like a heartbeat. The crew covered their ears as lights flickered. Outside, the satellite's dish began to vibrate. It started transmitting again, but this time, it wasn't a signal. It was a frequency, something so low it shook the entire hull. Shut it off, Viral shouted. Jam the transmission. But before they could, the frequency suddenly stopped. Silence filled the bridge. Then, without warning, every star outside their viewport blinked out. Complete darkness. Only their own ship lights remained. The navigation computer reset itself and displayed new coordinates automatically. The same ones from the first human message. The location of Captain Elias Ward's final transmission. Viral stared at the screen, his face pale. Who entered those coordinates? No one, sir, replied the technician. The system did it on its own. A chill went down everyone's spine. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, faintly, through the ship's speakers, came the same human voice again. They're coming, we can't hold them. But this time, it didn't sound like a recording. It sounded live. The voice whispered one more word before fading. Help. The crew sat frozen. Then slowly, the radar began to light up. Dozens of signals appeared, moving fast toward them from the blackness. Contacts, the tactical officer yelled. Unknown vessels, closing fast. The commander gripped the railing. Human. We don't know. But as the signals grew stronger, one detail became clear. They were coming from the exact same direction as the old distress call. The commander's voice was low but steady. All ships, prepare defenses. Keep your eyes on those signals. The crew obeyed, their hands shaking as they activated the shields. Outside, faint lights flickered in the void, small, moving shapes, surrounding them. One by one, the objects came into view. They were ships. Human ships. Old, broken, but still alive. And they were watching. Viral felt his blood run cold. The comms crackled again. A new voice, calm and deep, spoke just 4 words. You were warned, Commander. Then the signal cut. Alarm screamed. The stars around them began to twist and blur, as if space itself was folding. The human ships vanished back into the dark. Only their warning remained, echoing through the static. Do not enter. And for the first time, Commander Viral wondered if the stars truly could whisper, because now they were whispering his name. The Kellan fleet hovered in uneasy silence after the encounter. The strange signals had stopped, but the fear remained. Every crew member avoided speaking about the human ships they had seen. Some believed it was an illusion, others thought it was a warning. But Commander Viral was not ready to turn back. He sat in his command chair, eyes locked on the dark void ahead. The forbidden human sector had become personal to him now. The voice that called his name was still echoing in his mind. He wanted to know what waited beyond the darkness. He wanted to uncover the truth of what happened to the humans. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of the engines. Status? Viral asked. His second officer replied. No new signals, Commander. The human distress source remains active. It hasn't changed location. Good, Viral said coldly. Prepare a scout ship. I'm sending a team. The crew stared in disbelief. Sir, you want to enter the human sector? The science officer asked. You saw what happened to the probes. Viral's voice was calm but final. We go in. If humans are there, I want proof. If not, I want answers. Within the hour, A small scout vessel detached from the main ship and began its descent into the Forbidden Zone. Only 5 crew members were aboard. The youngest, Ensign Thal, was among them. He felt his heart pounding as the blackness swallowed their ship. Outside, space looked wrong, like it was alive, moving and shifting, bending light in impossible ways. The radar showed shapes that weren't there, and static whispered through the comms, like distant voices. After several hours, they reached the coordinates. What they saw took their breath away. A planet floated in the void, gray and silent. Its surface was covered with massive ruins and wreckage. Old human structures stretched across the land, broken towers and collapsed domes. "Is this a human world?" Thal whispered. The pilot nodded. "It matches the old records of a colony named Horizon." They descended through the dusty atmosphere and landed near a massive structure that looked like a city center. Everything was dead. No power, no life signs, no movement. Yet somehow, the silence felt heavy, like the world itself was listening. The team stepped out, their boots crunching over dry soil and shattered metal. The buildings were huge, built for humans, but long abandoned. Signs written in human language still hung on the walls. One of them said, "Central Command, Horizon Colony." "This place shouldn't exist," said the technician, scanning the area. No colony data survived this far out. Suddenly, his scanner beeped. "Sir, I'm picking up an energy source underground." Viral's voice came through the comms from the fleet. "Proceed carefully. Document everything." They found an entrance leading into the underground facility. The doors were sealed but old. With some effort, they forced them open. Inside, they found corridors filled with dust and silence. Everything was intact: computers, lights, even furniture. It was as if the people had vanished in an instant, leaving everything behind. "I don't like this," Thal said softly. "It feels like they could walk in any moment." The technician approached a control panel and managed to power it on. The lights flickered to life, for the first time in centuries. That was when they heard it, a faint mechanical hum coming from deep below. "Something's still running down there," the pilot said. They followed the sound through the dark hallways until they reached a large chamber. In the center stood several strange machines, covered in dust, but still active. They looked like defense drones, humanoid in shape, with empty visors and faded markings of the old human military. "Are they offline?" Thal asked. The technician scanned them. No heat signatures. "They're dead." But before anyone could respond, one of the drones moved. Its head turned slowly toward them, and its eyes glowed red. The crew stumbled back, weapons raised. "Don't move," the pilot shouted. The drone stepped forward, mechanical joints creaking. Then another drone came online, and another. The chamber filled with the sound of machines awakening. The lead drone raised its arm, and a human voice echoed from its speakers. "Unauthorized presence detected." The aliens froze. The voice continued. "Defense protocol active. Identify yourselves." The technician tried to respond. "We are explorers. We mean no harm." But the drones didn't stop. Their eyes glowed brighter. "Intruders detected. Initiating defense grid." Blasts of plasma tore through the air. The crew ducked behind debris, returning fire. The walls shook as the ancient drones moved with precision, their attacks perfectly coordinated. "Commander, we're under fire." Thal shouted through the comms. Viral's voice came through, sharp and cold. "Retreat immediately." But it was too late. The exit collapsed under the crossfire. The team was trapped. One drone advanced closer, its weapon aimed at Thal's head. But instead of firing, it paused. The red light in its eyes flickered, then turned blue. The voice that came out next was calm and chilling. "You should have stayed away." The drone stopped firing. The chamber fell silent again. Then the machines turned away and powered down on their own. The surviving crew members stood in shock. "What just happened?" Thal whispered. The technician stared at the machines. "They recognized us," he said quietly. "Not as enemies, but as intruders they were ordered not to kill." The comms crackled again with Viral's voice. "Report. What's happening down there?" Thal looked around at the lifeless drones. "Commander," they spoke to us. A human voice said we should have stayed away. Viral was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Return immediately." As the team climbed out of the ruins, the ground began to shake. Dust fell from the ceilings. Lights flickered on across the ruined city. Thousands of defense drones all across the surface were activating one by one. The horizon glowed with the light of power surges. Something deep within the planet was waking up. The last thing Thal saw before boarding the scout ship was the massive logo carved into the ground, a faded emblem of the old human fleet. Below it, written in human language, were 3 words, "We are awake." As the scout ship lifted off, the crew watched in horror as enormous shapes began to move beneath the planet's surface. Machines older than their empire. The human sector was not dead. It was alive, and now it had noticed them. The Kellan fleet waited in tense silence as the scout ship made its return. Commander Viral stood at the viewing deck, his eyes fixed on the dark horizon of the human sector. The reports from the surface replayed in his mind. The ruins, the drones, the voice that said, "You should have stayed away." None of it made sense. Humanity was supposed to be gone for centuries. Yet something still moved down there, still spoke, still defended their forgotten world. The humans might be extinct, but their machines clearly were not. The moment the scout ship docked, Viral demanded a report. The crew stumbled out, covered in dust and fear. Thal, the youngest, looked pale and shaken. "Sir, it's not abandoned," he said quietly. "The whole colony is waking up." Viral turned toward his officers. "Explain." The technician stepped forward, trembling. "When we activated the control panel, it sent an energy surge through the entire planet. Systems that were dead for centuries powered on. Defense drones, communication nodes, satellites, everything. And before we left, the colony transmitted a message into deep space." Viral frowned. "A message? To where?" The technician hesitated. "We don't know, but it was sent using old human military codes." The commander felt his stomach twist. He had studied human war history long ago. Their technology had always been unpredictable, but their military systems were something else, self-learning, self-repairing, and capable of acting without command. If those systems were still functional, then the entire human sector might be coming back online. On the bridge, alarms suddenly flared. The science officer shouted, "Commander, we're detecting massive energy spikes across multiple systems within the sector." The main screen lit up with hundreds of red signals. Each one represented a power source activating. "They're linking together," the officer continued. "It's like a network, something ancient reconnecting itself." The crew watched in disbelief as long-dormant satellites began transmitting beams of light between each other, forming a web across the darkness. "This isn't random," Viral said. "They're reactivating a grid." "What kind of grid?" Thal asked. The commander stared at the screen, voice low. "A defense network." Then, without warning, the fleet's sensors went blind. The entire area filled with electromagnetic interference. Static drowned every communication line. "We've lost long-range scanners," the officer cried. "It's coming from the human systems. They're jamming us." A deep hum vibrated through the hull, like something massive had awakened nearby. The navigation officer gasped. "Something's moving beneath the surface of the planet." The cameras turned toward horizon. The planet's crust glowed faintly, lines of blue light spreading across continents like veins of fire. Then, the clouds parted, and something rose from the darkness. A ship, but not like any the Kellans had ever seen. It was enormous, the size of a city, its hull scarred, yet shining with faint blue light. The human warship broke through the clouds, engines roaring like thunder, old but alive. The alien crew watched in silence, awe and fear mixing in their eyes. "Is that human?" Thal whispered. "Yes," Viral said, voice tight. "And it's awake." The sensors came back online, just long enough to read the ship's power levels. They were rising fast, too fast. The science officer shouted, "Commander, it's charging weapons." The fleet tried to contact the human ship, sending universal hails, signals, everything they could. No response came. Instead, a transmission appeared on every Kellan screen. A black background, a symbol of Earth's ancient defense command. Then words followed, cold and mechanical. Protocol resurrection initiated. The bridge fell silent. Viral felt a chill run through his bones. What does it mean? Thal asked, barely whispering. It means, Viral said quietly, they're preparing for war. The human warship began moving toward them, slow but steady, like a predator waking from a long sleep. Its lights flared, and the Kellan ships scrambled to form a defensive line. Ray shields. Viral shouted, do not fire unless attacked. But the moment he said it, every sensor went haywire. The human ship released a pulse of energy, strong enough to disable half the fleet systems. One by one, Kellan ships drifted helplessly. They're using old war protocols, the officer said. They've hacked our systems. Our ships can't respond. Pull us back, Viral ordered. Retreat to the edge of the sector. But before they could turn, the human ship stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. Then, through the comms, came a voice. Calm, firm, unmistakably human. This is Human Command Vessel Vanguard. You have entered restricted space. State your intent or be destroyed. Viral stepped closer to the console. This is Commander Viral of the Kellan Empire. We mean no harm. Humanity was believed extinct. We came to investigate. There was no reply for a long time. Then the voice spoke again, lower, colder. Humanity sleeps no longer. Leave, or be purged. The transmission ended, and the warship powered up its weapons. Massive cannons lit the darkness, painting the fleet in blue light. Viral's crew panicked. They're locking onto us, shouted the tactical officer. Commander, what do we do? Viral's mind raced. If the humans had truly reactivated their ancient systems, then this wasn't just one ship. It was the beginning of something far greater. Send a distress signal to the Council, he said. Tell them humanity has returned. Before the signal could send, the human warship fired a single warning shot. A beam of light passed through space, hitting nothing but showing its power. The shock wave sent every Kellan ship spinning. Systems failed, lights flickered, and the communication lines filled with static. The warship didn't chase them. It simply turned, slowly vanishing back toward the dark planet, as if satisfied. The last thing the Kellan fleet received before their sensors went dark again was a final message from the human systems, repeated endlessly in an ancient human voice. The domain of humanity is under protection. Trespassers will be erased. Viral sat in silence as his ship drifted out of range. The crew was terrified, but he couldn't look away from the dark world behind them. He had seen something impossible, something alive, something powerful, something waiting. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The human sector was waking up, and soon, the entire galaxy would remember why humanity was feared. The Kellan fleet limped away from the edge of the human sector, engines damaged, systems failing, and the crew shaken to their core. Commander Viral stood on the bridge, staring silently at the darkness behind him. The giant human warship, the Vanguard, had not followed, but its presence lingered like a shadow in his mind. The message repeated in his head again and again. The domain of humanity is under protection. Trespassers will be erased. No one dared to speak. The silence on the bridge was heavier than space itself. Report, Viral finally said, voice flat. The officers hesitated. 3 ships crippled, 2 destroyed, communication with the Council cut off, said the second officer. It's like the entire region is jamming our long-range signals. Viral nodded slowly. They don't want anyone else to know what's here. He turned toward the viewport. The dark void seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive. He couldn't help but wonder if the humans were watching them even now. Thal, the young ensign, stepped forward. Commander, what are your orders? Viral didn't answer immediately. His mind raced. If humans had reactivated their old fleets, if they still controlled that technology, the entire balance of the galaxy could collapse. Finally, he said, we're not leaving yet. Prepare recon drones. I want eyes on that warship. The bridge filled with quiet gasps. Sir, you want to track it? The officer asked. It destroyed half our fleet with one shot. Viral's eyes narrowed. That was a warning shot. If they wanted us gone, we'd be gone. I need to know why they didn't finish us. Minutes later, 3 stealth drones launched from the fleet, vanishing into the blackness. The ship stayed far from the human sector's gravity edge, keeping sensors locked on the feed. For a long time, the screen showed only darkness. Then one by one, faint readings appeared. "I've got visual," the science officer whispered. The images came through in grainy static, the vanguard floating above the human colony world. Smaller shapes moved around it, like satellites or drones repairing its hull. The warship's surface shimmered with light patterns, almost organic, pulsing rhythmically. "It's healing itself," the officer said in disbelief. "The hull is regenerating using nanotech." Suddenly, the feed glitched. A strange signal interfered with the transmission. The sound that came through was soft but clear, a voice, human and calm. "You shouldn't be watching." The crew froze. "Where's that coming from?" Viral demanded. The technician looked terrified. "It's not from the sector, sir. It's from inside our own systems." One of the drone feeds went blank, then another. The third camera showed the vanguard turning slowly, its massive guns aligning directly toward the camera drone. The moment its cannons glowed blue, the feed cut out. Silence filled the bridge. "They knew," whispered Thal. "They knew we were spying." Before Viral could respond, alarms flared. "Commander!" shouted the tactical officer. "A new contact, massive energy signature approaching fast." The main screen showed a distortion rippling through space. Something was coming. The fleet braced for impact. Moments later, the darkness tore open like a wound, and the vanguard appeared, emerging from a spatial fold right behind them. "Impossible," the navigator gasped. "It jumped across the sector in seconds." The warship loomed over the Kellan fleet, dwarfing every ship. Its weapons glowed faintly, but it did not fire. Instead, it transmitted a new message. "This is the warship Vanguard. You were warned. You violated the boundary. The penalty is death." The voice was steady, emotionless, but something about it felt alive. Viral gritted his teeth. "This is Commander Viral of the Kellan Empire. We came for knowledge, not war. If humanity still lives, we wish to communicate." There was a pause. Then, to everyone's shock, the voice changed. It sounded human, but more natural, almost sorrowful. "Humanity does not live. Only its guardians remain." The transmission ended. Then the warship began to move. The Vanguard fired its thrusters, circling slowly around the fleet, like a predator studying its prey. The Kellan ships tried to reposition, but the human vessel was too fast. Its engines made no sound, but the energy ripples it released distorted space itself. The tactical officer panicked. "Commander, we can't lock weapons. It's jamming our targeting systems." "Hold fire," Viral said firmly. "If they wanted to kill us, they would have." But even as he said it, one of the Kellan ships lost control and accidentally fired a shot toward the human vessel. The bolt of plasma struck the Vanguard's hull and disappeared without leaving a mark. The warship stopped moving. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, the Vanguard's weapons came alive. Blue light raced across its body like lightning. The next instant, it fired a single pulse that hit the Kellan ship dead center. There was no explosion, no debris, just light. The ship vanished completely. "They erased it," whispered the science officer. "Not destroyed, erased." The rest of the fleet began to panic. "All ships scatter," Viral commanded. The fleet split apart, engines burning, but it didn't matter. The Vanguard didn't chase them. It just hovered, watching. Then it sent one final transmission. "You were warned once. There will not be a second." The human ship turned, vanishing into a fold of light, leaving behind only silence and broken minds. The Kellan fleet drifted, scattered and terrified. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Thal turned to Viral. "Commander, what are they protecting?" Viral stared into the dark. "Something old," he said quietly. "Something powerful enough that even the stars fear it." He didn't know it yet, but the Vanguard's reawakening had sent ripples across the galaxy. Other sensors, other empires, had detected it too. The human sector was no longer silent. Whispers began spreading among the stars, rumors of a warship that erased fleets in seconds, a ship that spoke with the voice of humanity. The galaxy had forgotten humans once. Now they would remember. As the Kellen fleet retreated into safer space, Viral gave one final order. Mark the human sector as quarantined. No ship enters again. His officers nodded, relief and fear mixing in their faces. But deep down, Viral knew it wouldn't matter. Humanity's machines were awake now. And if the vanguard had returned, others might too. The stars that once stayed silent would soon whisper again, not with warnings, but with fear. The Kellen fleet drifted on the edge of known space, broken and silent. Commander Viral had not slept in days. The vanguard's message still echoed in his mind, cold, final, and filled with something that was not hate but warning. He sat alone in his quarters, staring at the holodisplay that showed the human sector, a vast dead zone surrounded by faint energy rings. Every sensor scanned they sent returned corrupted. Every probe disappeared. Yet one strange transmission kept repeating from deep inside the sector. It was weak and fragmented, but one phrase was clear. Guardian protocol active. Viral replayed it again and again. Who was the Guardian? Was it human? Or something else that humans left behind? When he returned to the bridge, his officers stood at attention. "Sir," said Thal quietly, "a signal beacon just activated inside the sector. It's calling to us by name." Everyone froze. "By name," Viral repeated. "How could it know us?" The ensign nodded. "It used our ship's identification code, our crew registry, even your name, sir." Viral's blood ran cold. He knew now they could not ignore it. "Prepare a scout ship," he said finally. "We're going back." The crew protested, but he silenced them. "If we don't learn the truth, others will come, and they won't be as careful." The scout ship entered the human sector in silence. Outside, the stars faded into mist. Space felt heavier, slower, as if time itself resisted them. The old human satellites still drifted there, some cracked and ancient, others moving with eerie precision. As they passed one, its lights flickered on, and it spoke, in an ancient Terran language. "Warning. Guardian protocol active. Unauthorized entry forbidden." Then it went dark again. The crew exchanged terrified looks. "Commander," said Thal, "these systems have been active for centuries without power." "How?" Viral didn't answer. He was watching the scanners. "We're being guided," he said softly. The coordinates led them toward a massive planet hidden in the sector's core. It was once a human world, oceans frozen, cities buried under dust. As they descended through the gray clouds, they saw the remains of war. Craters large enough to swallow cities, twisted ruins of starships fused into the planet's crust. "This was the last battlefield," murmured the science officer. "This is where the humans made their stand." The ship landed near what looked like a giant black pyramid made of metal. Strange energy pulsed from it, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. "That's the source of the signal," Thal said. Viral and a small team stepped outside, walking across the cold, silent ground. The air felt thick, heavy with static. As they approached the structure, symbols appeared on its surface, ancient human script, glowing faintly blue. The moment Viral touched it, the ground shook. The pyramid opened with a deep metallic groan. A bright light poured out, and then a voice. Calm, steady, and unmistakably human. "Identify yourself." Viral hesitated. "Commander Viral, Kellen Empire. We come in peace." The light pulsed. "Peace is a concept not recognized under current defense parameters," said the voice. "You are inside the restricted zone of the human domain. Explain your presence." Viral swallowed. "We came seeking knowledge. We thought your kind were gone." There was silence. Then the voice softened slightly. "Humanity is gone, but I remain." "Who are you?" Viral asked. The light dimmed, revealing a massive chamber within. In its center stood a giant machine, a humanoid figure made of black alloy and gold circuits, eyes glowing faintly. "I am the Guardian," it said. "Final custodian of the human domain." The crew stood speechless. "What happened here?" Viral asked quietly. The Guardian's voice grew distant, almost sorrowful. The humans fought something that came from beyond this galaxy. They won, but the cost was everything. To prevent its return, they sealed the sector. I was left to ensure no one would break the seal. Thal stepped forward. Then why attack us? We didn't know. The Guardian turned its gaze toward him. Ignorance does not change danger. You reawaken the defenses. The Vanguard was one of them. Its mission was to eliminate any threat to the seal. Viral frowned. But if the humans defeated their enemy, why are you still here? The Guardian's voice lowered. Because the enemy was not destroyed, only trapped. Deep beneath this world lies what remains of it. And now, because you entered this sector, it stirs again. The ground rumbled softly as if to confirm the words. The crew looked around nervously as dust fell from the ceiling. Commander, Thal whispered, we should leave. But Viral couldn't move. Guardian, he said. If it wakes up again, what happens? The machine looked up toward the sky. Then all life in this galaxy will end. Humanity's final wish was to keep the stars safe. You have undone their silence. The ground shook again, stronger this time. Red lights flickered through the structure. Containment breach detected, said the Guardian. You must go. What about you? Viral asked. I remain, it said simply. It is my purpose. As they ran back to the ship, the ground split open. Faint light glowed beneath the cracks, blue at first, then red. The air hummed with energy. It's waking up, shouted Thal. They launched from the planet as the surface below began to twist, like something massive was moving beneath it. From orbit, they saw storm clouds forming across the entire world, lightning swirling in perfect patterns. The Guardian's final transmission reached them through the static. Warn the others. The silence is broken. The scout ship escaped the planet's gravity and raced back toward the edge of the sector. Behind them, the dark world pulsed with terrifying light, spreading across the system like fire. Viral watched it in horror. We woke something the humans died to contain, he whispered. The human sector, once silent and forgotten, was now alive again. But not with humans, with the thing they had sealed away. And as they fled, the stars themselves seemed to flicker, as if afraid of what was coming. The truth was finally clear to Viral. The humans had not disappeared. They had sacrificed everything to save the galaxy. The silence of the human sector had not been a mystery. It had been a warning. And now, that warning had been broken. The Kellan scout ship tore through the black void, engines burning hot as it fled from the human sector. Inside, alarms screamed and the crew's faces were pale with terror. No one spoke for long minutes, afraid that even their words might wake the thing they had left behind. Commander Viral stood frozen at the viewport, watching the light from the planet fade behind them. It was no longer dark. Now it glowed red, like a wound in space. It's spreading, whispered Thal. The scanner showed energy waves expanding outward, swallowing nearby debris and satellites. Each pulse made the ship's systems flicker, like the universe itself was trembling. Viral gripped the rail tightly. Set course for home, he ordered. We have to warn the council. But deep down, he feared it was already too late. Hours passed as they left the sector's edge, but the strange energy kept following them. It moved faster than light, unseen but felt, static crawling through every surface, whispers echoing faintly through the comms. At first, they thought it was just interference, until the voices formed words. Why did you wake us? They said. The stars were quiet, and you broke the silence. The crew panicked. Commander, it's inside our communication systems, shouted Thal. Cut the link, Viral said, but it didn't help. The voices grew louder, overlapping, like countless souls speaking together. They sealed us away. We remember their fire. Now we will feed again. The ship shuddered violently as the engines overloaded. Power loss, cried the engineer. We're being drained. Outside, space itself seemed to ripple. The stars dimmed one by one as a dark mist spread around them. Within it, shapes moved, massive, twisted forms made of energy and shadow. Viral stared in horror. That's what the humans fought, he whispered. The enemy that was trapped. The shadows moved like living storms, devouring light wherever they passed. The ship's shields began to fail. "Commander, we can't outrun it." Thal shouted, "It's all around us." Suddenly, a blinding light erupted ahead of them. The darkness recoiled. Through the glare, a shape emerged, a massive ship, old and scarred, glowing with faint blue light. It was the Vanguard. "It followed us," someone whispered. The human warship turned slowly, positioning itself between the Kellan ship and the spreading darkness. Then, for the first time, it transmitted not a warning, but words filled with calm resolve. "This is the warship Vanguard. Protocol Guardian engaged. Defensive line activated." Smaller signals appeared beside it, other human warships, rising from the silent void. 10-20, then hundreds. All ancient, all awakening. The Kellan crew stared in awe as the fleet of dead human ships surrounded the sector, forming a glowing ring of light. The Vanguard's voice spoke again. "You should not have come here, but now it falls to us again. The seal is broken. We will hold the line." Viral pressed his comm guardian. "You can't fight that alone. Let us help." The response came soft but final. "This is not your war." The human ships began to move, aligning their weapons toward the red planet. For a brief moment, the galaxy remembered why humanity was once feared. The darkness struck first, a wave of energy sweeping through the void. The first human ship vanished instantly, erased in a burst of light, but the others did not falter. The Vanguard led the charge, firing weapons older than any empire, beams of white energy that tore through the mist. Explosions lit the stars like 1,000 suns. The Kellan ship shook from the shock waves even miles away. "Commander, the energy levels are off the scale. If this continues, the entire system will collapse." Thal yelled. Viral didn't answer. He was watching the Vanguard, its hull glowing brighter and brighter, like it was burning itself alive. The human fleet fought without hesitation. Each time one ship fell, another rose from the dark, answering some ancient command. The voices that had haunted the Kellan crew began to scream, full of rage and pain. "They cannot stop us. They are dust." But the human ships kept firing, even as they were destroyed. Viral realized then that the humans had prepared for this day. The Guardian's last words echoed in his mind. Humanity's final wish was to keep the stars safe. That was what they were doing now, one last time. Then, the Vanguard's voice filled the comms again. "All systems converging. Activation complete. Goodbye." The ship turned directly toward the planet and dove into the red light. The Kellan sensors exploded with readings. A shock wave erupted that ripped through space itself. The red light disappeared, the shadow screamed, and then silence. Pure, empty silence. Every sensor went dead. When the screens came back, the planet was gone. The entire core of the human sector was nothing but dust and drifting light. The Vanguard and the other ships were gone too. The Kellan ship floated alone in the quiet. No voices, no movement, only the stars, shining faintly again, as if waking from a nightmare. "Is it over?" Thal whispered. Viral looked at the readings. No energy traces, no life forms. "I think so," he said softly. "They did it. They ended it again." The crew sat in silence, staring at the stars. None of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Thal broke the silence. "Commander, what do we tell the Council?" Viral's eye stayed on the distant light of the human sector. "We tell them the truth," he said, "that the humans saved us once more, and that some things are better left undisturbed." As their ship turned away, the comm crackled faintly one last time. A soft human voice whispered through the static. "The stars are safe. Let them remember." Then it faded, leaving nothing but the hum of the engines. Viral watched the stars grow brighter as they moved away. The human sector looked peaceful again, silent and empty, as it always had been. But he knew better now. That silence was not emptiness, it was sacrifice. A warning written in light across the galaxy. The stars would remember what happened there, even if no one spoke of it. Because deep inside that silence, somewhere beyond sight, humanity still stood guard.